I have a composing cottage which I go to, which is very simple. No internet, no telephone. It's next to a church in a valley with no other houses nearby.
Like Gustav Mahler.
Exactly.
Yes.
Because I do find that to just be alone helps the process of finding ideas. And it is, as it happens, a rather beautiful place. But people say, oh, you must find the beauty of the landscape inspiring. You know, to be honest with you, what's inspiring and what produces the composition is more the deadline. That's the inspiration, usually. Oh, I started my whole musical life singing in first my school choir and then my school chapel choir. So I sang a lot of the sacred repertoire from quite an early age. And as a composer, in fact, I enjoy writing for anything. You know, orchestra, chamber music, all sorts of things. But the way my career has turned out is that probably 80% of my work is for choir. And the reason for that is that people generally commission you to write something like what you have written already. So at the start of my career, I wrote a few choral pieces, and then people asked me to write more choral pieces. And that's not something I'm unhappy about. I think that to have been associated with choirs during my lifetime is a wonderful thing because they've improved so much. You know, over the 50 years of my adult life, the standard has gone from there to there. And if I had to choose one area of the musical world to be associated with, I would certainly pick choral music. It's been an exciting journey for me over the years, and so that's really how it happened. I never intended to write mainly choral music, but it just has turned out that way, and that's fine. I'd probably say that when I write for choir, I feel like I'm coming home to my original family. You know, it's a nice feeling. I'm intensely religious when I'm setting a religious text, because I think you should not set a text to music unless you can find the vision in the words. And if the words mean nothing to you, then it's better not to set them. And so I go into a very religious frame of mind when I'm setting a religious text, and of course I'm inspired. Anyone who writes choral music sooner or later comes to write sacred music. And interestingly, John Tavener, who was a previous recipient of the wonderful award that I've been honoured with tonight, John won that award in 2013. He and I were friends at high school, and we had the same composition teacher, who I realise now was a very devout Christian. And he never spoke about his religious faith, but somehow, if you heard him play, my old teacher, if you heard him play a Bach chorale prelude on the organ, somehow you knew that the understanding of the faith was there. And of course, John Tavener concentrated 100% pretty much on sacred music. I've never wanted to do that myself, but I always feel in the world of sacred music, I feel at home. And I hope that's sort of good enough. I think if you want to set religious words, I think you have to have a sense of faith. It's at the heart of where a community should be, because singing expresses your soul. It comes from inside you. And it's one of the purest expressions of our humanity, I think. And then, if singers join together in a choir, then the power is magnified, that somehow it brings people together in harmony, and hopefully it can bring peoples together in harmony. And what always annoys me about our politicians in England, they're probably not like that here, but politicians don't seem to understand that what we have to do is bring people together if we're going to have a peaceful world. I do believe that music is a force for peace, and particularly choral music. I think anyone who's sung in a choir will tell you that at the end of a choir rehearsal, they feel refreshed and they feel more connected to people. So, I mean, really that's just to say that I think music should be at the centre of education in our world. And in England, I don't think you have this problem quite the same way, but in England, music is kind of off to one side. You know, it's an extra. And I think that's an uncivilized way to look upon it, because it is so important. Well, I think it was the French philosopher André Gide who said that all art should have a message of hope. And if you listen, for example, to the music of Bach, he's not afraid to confront death and suffering, but yet that beyond that, there's always joy. You know, that I think Bach, and he was a cross old man, you know, he used to hit his choir boys and all that, so we're told. But he knew that in the end, he would be dancing with the angels. And so I take that as a model, that I think we must confront the bad things in our world, but come out with a message of hope. And I think if we don't have that hope, then we might as well all pack up and jump in the river, you know. I think that is my feeling. I hope it's not false optimism, but I think we must always keep hope alive, even in the darkest times. That's my belief. I think of myself as a citizen of the world, you know, to be honest with you. I was born in London, and of course quite a lot of the music that I grew up with was English music, and I feel connected to it, I hope, but yet I feel connected to most of the music in the world, and it's for other people to say, when they listen to something I've written, oh, that must be an English composer. And I'm not sure that you would maybe be able to tell that, apart from if I said an English text, that might be a giveaway. But I don't know how strongly English I think of myself. I don't think there's any harm in a sort of, how shall I say, a nostalgia, artistically, for a homeland. That's fine, but I get very uncomfortable if that translates into, you know, English music is the best, because it's not true. You know, it's just the world has, talent is distributed all over the world, and we're all the children, we hope of Saint Cecilia, you know. That's what I hope for when I'm composing, that maybe Saint Cecilia will just fly in through the window and say, oh John, I've got a spare idea for you here. And I'm not going to tell you which pieces, but I know there are some pieces where she was nowhere near. That's a big regret.
Yes.
Do you know, I didn't meet the right people at an early age. That I love opera as a private citizen. And as a matter of fact, I love the American musical as an art form.
You would like to do this?
Oh yes, Yes, it's just that I did have an offer once of a full-length opera, but the problem, as any composer who does opera will tell you, is the words. Yes. You've got to have the right librettist.
Libretto.
You really do. And I have never had one lyric writer, one librettist that I've worked with closely.
I hope some librettists will hear you today.
Well, yeah, it's too late. I mean, at my age, I'm not going to start writing operas at my age. But no, I love the stage, I love the drama, and I would have been very happy in the world of opera, but it just didn't come about that way. And thing is, some composers are very determined. Think of Wagner. He knew what he wanted to do exactly, and nobody deflected him. He had his goal. And I wouldn't say I've ever been like that. I react to what happens to me, to the people I meet, the opportunities that come along. And as it happens, most of those have been in the area of choral music. But that's great. You know, you can't, you've only got one life. You know, there are very few universal composers left now who do everything. Mostly composers seem to specialise. And songwriters. I mean, of course, really, I'm 50% songwriter, 50% composer. Because although my training was 100% classical, like anybody who was alive in the era of the Beatles. Remember the Beatles, anyone? Yeah. Okay, I was there at that time. I've been influenced by popular music. And it's just been a thread that has fed into what I do. But there's no good speculating about the road that you didn't take. And I haven't, I mean, yes, it would be lovely to try something different. I think most composers love to do something they've never done before. And maybe even now, there'll be an opera house somewhere crazy enough to say, will you write an opera? And here's a libretto, and it's perfect. But it hasn't happened. You never know. The life of a composer is full of surprises. My next composition is going to be a sacred piece, as it happens, in honour of the 1500th anniversary of the first English saint, who was St. Alban. And, St. Alban's Cathedral, which bears his name and is in the town that bears his name, near London, is planning a big festivity, you know, to celebrate this saint. And they said, would I write something, a big anthem that could be performed on the occasion of that service? And I will be looking for a text very shortly, because that is always the first step. So that's on the table. Then I've got new pieces to write for the Christmas concerts I do each year in London at the Royal Albert Hall. And so I've got plenty on the desk at home, I can tell you. No very big pieces planned at the moment. The thing is that because I divide my time between composition and conducting and a certain amount of record production that I do as a sideline, I find it difficult to clear away the large amount of time that you need to write sort of a work like my Magnificat or something like that. Each year, mostly, it's easier to write shorter pieces, and it fits my life better. And I hope I might have one more large piece in me somewhere, but we'll see, we'll see.
The first concert will be in St. Albans Cathedral?
Yes, yes, the first performance will be in the cathedral in St. Albans in early next year. Do you know, I just take each day as it comes, and I think I'm a practical person. I just like to get the next job done. And then, so I climb one hill, and you get to the top of the hill, and then you see another hill ahead. And do I have a dream beyond the far horizon? Okay, well, I plan to live to 150. And I want to write one magnificent piece when I'm 150, okay? And I imagine myself conducting the premiere in one of the world's great concert halls, maybe. And the applause of the crowd is ringing in my ears, and I go back to my dressing room, and there are lots of beautiful young women who mock my and then boom! How to make God laugh? And the answer is tell him your plans.